The Control Group Warbond, made up entirely of experimental and dangerous technology, has just been released. But is it any good, and is it worth your hard earned super credits? Well, with some assistance, I've played with all the new gear already so that I might help you make an informed decision based on my own play experience with the gear, and tell you all the details based on the stats and use cases for these new items before you buy the Warbond. With no further delay, let's get into the gear. Kicking off with a new Voli gun, the VG70 variable lives up to its name with 3 different firing modes and 3 different RPM settings. When set to automatic, it fires at 300, 550, or 750 RPM, dealing 85 damage or 20 durable damage with light penetration and an abysmal 10 stagger that's basically cosmetic. Overall, meaning this weapon deals 1063 damage per second. For context, this is overall 425 less DPS than the Tenderizer with 5 less stagger force. Although it does have a 49 round magazine with 7 spare canisters, it's not objectively wrong to say the volley, when fired on automatic at least, is for the most part a worse Tenderizer with worse handling and only 20 ergonomics. So what about the other modes? Can they carry this weapon into relevancy? The volley mode fires all 7 barrels, but strangely it's still fired as just one projectile. As far as projectile damage, this has some serious punch to it, dealing 595 damage or 140 durable damage. While that seems quite high, it's overkill for almost everything that you can reasonably kill with light penetrating weaponry. And anything you normally couldn't kill with light penetrating weaponry but damage, like say Charger Butts or Bile Titan Stomachs, have high durability, rendering that 595 would-be damage much less effective while running through your canisters in only 7 shots total before you need to reload. The break action reload time being pretty lengthy to boot doesn't really help things here either. The total mode gimmick is definitely where the fun of the weapon lies though. Firing on the total mode will lose all remaining ammunition in the canister. Assuming your canister is full, you're firing a ridiculous 4,165 light penetrating damage that still comes out to 980 durable damage if the surface was 100% durable. For all of this power, the drawback of needing to reload after and being ragdolled taking 10% of your health and damage or so is present. However, if you fire on total while laying prone, you'll not be knocked back or suffer any damage at all. Despite all that instant power, this allows this primary to actually perform some pretty impressive feats like one-shotting the back of a Hulk or a Charger rear, and even destroying Bile Titans in 2 volleys from the total mode to the lower body. These are significant feats of strength for sure, but very gimmicky and clunky to pull off in my experience. Overall, against all 3 factions, it felt as though the volley came up short of my expectations for a primary weapon when compared to other similar options in the majority of use cases. If the armor penetration would scale with firing mode to 3 and 4, I think this weapon's gimmick would have much wider appeal and find some long-term usage in the community. But as it stands, the majority of users picking up the Warbond today are, in my opinion, unlikely to utilize this weapon beyond the first 2 days of release. A fun primary, but a likely just as quickly forgotten one. I give it a 5 out of 10 overall against all 3 factions. Next, let's talk about the Epoch Support Plasma Launcher. This weapon is unfortunately numerically and practically a mixed bag of terrible and mediocre. Damage-wise, the projectile itself deals only 400 damage or 200 durable, has a cosmetic 10 demolition force, and is only AP4, meaning it deals only 65% damage against the majority of targets that you'd want an anti-tank weapon for. What about its explosive AoE? Well, that only deals 400 damage or durable with class 4 penetration at minimum charge, but does scale to 800 damage if you max out the charge mechanic that feels very similar to a railgun, except there is no safe mode option at all. Charging to max does increase the armor penetration to 5, however, so if you're using this launcher at all, you're basically only going to get any real effect out of it by fully charging the weapon, which takes a very lengthy period of time, as you can see. Charging to maximum also increases its explosive radius significantly from the baseline 2.3 meter inner and 3 meter outer radius. So even if you're using this launcher against groups of enemies, you still need to ride the lightning and cap out that charge for any real effect. And the punishment for overdoing it is, of course, death, as well as your Epoch being atomized, meaning it's crucial you find your rhythm when using this weapon. As far as ammunition, you get 3 shots per battery with 5 spares, which seems generous on the surface, but compared to other anti-tank style weapons, its damage and especially DPS is absurdly low, made even lower by the fact it's a plasma weapon, so that projectile damage is carrying some serious fall off on top. Not to mention the reloading itself is a very clunky 2-stage reload where you'll want to animation cancel the first step instantly, then slowly insert the canister while being forced to take a knee. While using this weapon, the stationary reload felt extremely out of place and unnecessarily clunky, much like firing the weapon. You see, the Epoch also has some incredible MOA or minute of angle issues. It sometimes fires drastically off course, like it's attempting to fly at the map's 0-0 point for no explainable reason. How something like this survived internal testing is a bit beyond me, as the only requirement to recreate this bug is firing the weapon a few times. This, coupled with that long charge up time and clunky reload, is sure to make Helldivers drop the weapon as fast as they picked it up. The final nail in the coffin being the 10 demolition force, which makes it so this launcher is incapable of destroying enemy buildings or spawners. This feels like an oversight in the design, as 10 demolition force is less than most normal weaponry, let alone an anti-tank capable weapon. Overall, against all 3 factions, I couldn't really pinpoint anything I specifically liked about this weapon that I don't like more about the much more reliable and damaging free Quasar Cannon, which deals almost as much damage as all 3 of the Epoch shots in one, only needs to cool down with no ammo, has no fall off, and has greater armor penetration. There is unfortunately just nothing to like about this launcher in its current form. I give it a 1 out of 10, should have stayed on the truck it fell off. Now that we've got the worst of the Warbond out of the way, let's talk about what I enjoyed by far the most about it and what I would personally pay 1,000 super credits for all on its own. If you guessed the Warpack, you're right. The Warpack backpack allows you to travel forward through a personal wormhole, avoiding all collision and damage. It's safe to use once every 5 seconds, indicated by your wormhole on the backpack glowing purple. If you continue to use the Warpack while it's yellow, the safety timer will extend another 5 seconds before you can use it safely again, and you'll take some damage. After using the wormhole while it's yellow, it'll glow red. Using the Warpack while the wormhole is red will kill your Helldiver and destroy the Warpack. This gives you unmatched control and mobility overall. You can activate the warp any moment you have full control of your Helldiver, even during dives. The only time the Warpack cannot be utilized is during ragdolling. To go over some of the specific questions that you likely have about the Warpack, yes, you can go up terrain, but only when the terrain is not marked as blocked for climbing. Any climbable terrain, the Warpack will push you up. You can teleport through any wall and enemy in the game. Landing inside medium or smaller enemies will nuke them, but landing inside heavy enemies will cause you to instantly die. So no using the Warpack to crawl up a charger's ass. When attempting to go down in elevation, however, the Warpack will just throw you out in a straight line from your starting position, causing you to potentially take a nasty fall. So it's better for going up than going down. I also tested what happens if you collide directly with enemy bug holes just to see if the wormhole would destroy them. The answer was yes, but I also died in the process, so we'll call this one a draw. So how does this backpack compare to the Jump Pack, the previously uncontested king of mobility utility? The Warpack provides you with twitch reaction level control of your Helldiver's position. You can instantly react to any incoming damage, such as a stingray passing over, an incoming charger, Bile Titan vomit, or even Hunter leaps instantly, where the Jump Pack would have a bit of a wind-up and potentially not get you to safety in time. However, the Jump Pack is still better at actually traversing terrain, not only able to go up and down in a lot of otherwise unclimbable positions, which is something blocked by the Warpack, but also able to travel much greater distances in a single activation. overall making the Warpack feel like a very powerful tool for in-combat active dodging capability, and the Jump Pack feel like a better hybrid traversal tool. This means both backpacks have their own use cases. If you wanted a mobile backpack for a more aggressive or combative mission, you'd likely favor the Warpack, while a more subtle approach to the mission involving quick traversal around the map would favor the Jump Pack. Overall, the Warpack is a very fun addition to the game, and likely to stick around loadouts long after the honeymoon period of the new Warbond. 10 out of 10 addition to the game from me. It's unique, it's useful, it's fun, and there are no major flaws or bugs that I could tell with its design. This now brings us to the Adreno Defibrillator Armor passive. This passive increases your stim duration by 2 seconds like the medic armor suits, but does not provide you with 2 extra stims. Instead, you get 50% arc resistance, which is enough to survive any of the Illuminate's arc weaponry, making this a very solid perk for this faction specifically. But you also get the unique passive to self-revive on death as long as you did not take enough damage to destroy one of your limbs and did not take multiple instances of damage capable of killing you. To go into detail on what I mean by that, basically if you take a very large burst of damage, such as the projectile of a cannon, your body will sustain so much damage it triggers you to be gibbed, preventing the revive. More commonly, however, all explosives deal both projectile damage on direct impact and explosive damage in an area around the projectile. If hit directly by most of these types of weapons, you will revive from the projectile, but then instantly die in the same frame from the explosion, rendering the passive useless. The other caveat to the self-revive is the fact that it is not a second chance, but a chance to go out in a blaze of glory. Your health drains at the same rate as a terminal bleed out of 10 damage per second, only mitigated to 9 damage per second when using the vitality booster. You can use stims to prolong your death even longer, and the extra duration on the stims does facilitate this. But basically, this armor passive is limited to activating almost exclusively from bullet and slashing wounds only, and only prolongs your death by a matter of seconds. In summary, this armor is not very practical against the bugs or bots, but will likely be pretty solid against the Illuminate, who overall deal less damage as a whole and are less prone to instant kill level damage. It's a chance to go out in a blaze of glory, but there are so many passives at this point that could just save your life from the damage that killed you, and the Democracy Protects armor simply circumvents death half the time, making this passive feel very dramatic, but overall very mediocre compared to its peers. Against the Illuminate, I give these new suits a 8 out of 10 thanks to that arc resistance and their low damage as a whole as a faction, 5 out of 10 against the Terminids, and a 3 out of 10 against the Automatons due to their more common insta-kill level damage, making the armor much less effective. The Laser Cannon Sentry deals 350 damage or 200 durable damage per second with an armor penetration level of 4 with a fire status buildup of 1.5, just like the handheld laser cannon. This new sentry can be called in once every 135 seconds with ship upgrades similar to other turrets, but can fire infinitely unlike its peers as long as it gets a chance to cool down. This all sounds decent, but there's some serious flaws in the design here. The biggest one being the sentry does not change targets after lighting enemies on fire, wasting the fire damage over time effect almost entirely, meaning you have a turret that's only capable of 350 DPS and not much more than that. One of the lowest DPS scores in the entire game, next to the other lasers and the Arc 12 Blitzer. When you think of what it takes to successfully utilize a laser weapon in Helldivers 2, you likely think about how you utilize its laser beam level precision to hammer a weak point. But a turret isn't capable of doing that, meaning the low DPS is only capable of just barely struggling to kill off the weakest of foes. And although the premise of potentially infinite firepower sounds novel, there are very few times during combat in Helldivers 2 where you need to hold an area beyond the initial engagement, meaning that turret then becomes useless as you move on, even if it does survive overheating. The only time this is not the case is during Rocket Defense and Eradicate. However, it's still not going to be a great choice for Eradicate due to the low DPS, and Rocket Defense is the easiest mission type. So it's hard to get excited for a stratagem whose niche is, the easiest mission. Overall, this new turret gets a 4 out of 10 for me with no notable edge against any of the three factions. but we'll say it's a 6 out of 10 for rocket defense operations to be fair. Lastly, the new G31 Arc grenade is unremarkable. The damage is listed at only 100, but this is pretty obviously incorrect based on how it fries small bugs instantly. It has a penetration of only 4 with a light stun effect of only 1.5 seconds and stun value of 8, enough to instantly stun medium or smaller enemies, and not enough damage to actually kill them instantly or any larger ones. On top of this mediocrity, the grenade has only 20 demolition force, which is insufficient to destroy any enemy spawners or buildings. Kind of a silver bullet for grenades. However, it will continually stun enemies as it bounces around, emitting up to 4 pulses of damage before fizzling out. This will result in killing medium enemies. You also do not get more of these grenades than what becomes standard as a 4 grenade cap. Basically, it's a grenade that's worse at area denial than gas grenades or incendiary grenades, with no ability to destroy spawners in exchange for a light stun effect and 35 stagger force. Overall, I award this grenade a 4 out of 10. Not likely to be used by any Helldivers beyond their first dive with it. That about wraps up my initial thoughts on my playtest of the Control Group Warbond, as well as all the stats behind it. If you enjoyed the video, let me know what you think of the new Warbond in the comments below. Thank you for watching till the end, and thank you to my coffee supporters who help keep the channel going. Tune in next time when we examine the weak points and how every support weapon in the game stacks up against the new automaton War Strider. See you next time!